Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Spicy Coding Camp, where we do things. And why? Because we do it. Now, today we will be going through iterate through an array with the for loop. A common task in JavaScript is to iterate through the contents of an array. One way to do that is with a for loop. This code will output each element of the array R to the console. So right here we have our array and it's labeled R. Remember, this is the place where you can get creative with your names, or you can be boring and just say ARR. Const means, hey, keep it as an array. But even though it's const, you can still update and remove elements as you wish. This for loop right here, we declare a variable I, which is going to be responsible for the iteration. And then here we say how far we want it to go, so to the end of the array length. And then we say if we want to increment it or decrement it. And since we're iterating it, we're going to increment it, which you can also decrement and iterate. But in this sense, for our iteration, we're going to increment it, which is another way of saying if you were to go forward, it's like 0, and then the next one would be 1, and then the next one would be 2, and then the next one would be 3. If you were to decrement it, and you started at 0, it would be -1, and then you decrement it to -2, and then you decrement it to -3, and yada yada yada. So iteration is really based on the parameters of what you decide for it to be. It will follow because it is a computer, and computers like to follow humans. And if you go down here, it says remember that arrays have 0-based indexing, which means the last index of the array is length -1. Our condition for this loop is I is less than r.length, which stops the loop when I is equal to length. In this case, the last iteration is I == 4, when I becomes equal to r.length -1 and outputs 6 to the console. Then I increases to 5, and the loop terminates because I is less than r.length is false. So when it comes to the iteration, this is talking about the iteration. And this is talking about the length of the array. So the iteration of I, once it's equal to 4, it's going to hop out. But most importantly, it's going to look at this. Once it becomes equal and outputs 6 to the console, then I increases to 5. But the loop terminates because look at how many are here. 0 base index, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we look at the indexes, it goes from 0 to 4. If we look at to how many times I increments, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 is the r.length. That is the length of the array. Remember, dot length gets the length of the array. So the iteration, once it goes past 5, it's going to hop out of this loop and say, okay, and we're going to hop out. So once it hits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's like, okay, let's hop out. Because remember, 5 is the length of the array, and 0 to 4 are the indexes of the array. So it says declare and initialize a variable total to 0. So let's do this little by little, all right? We're going to declare let total equals 0, because that's what it's asking for. Use a for loop to add the value of each element of the my array to total. Now remember what it says right here. Use a for loop. Okay, so we know what a for loop looks like because we've been working with these suckers for a hot minute, right? And what are we going to do? We're going to start at 0 because remember, we want to start somewhere. You don't start in base, or you start somewhere. And then we're going to do length because we want it to go to the end of this array, which remember, if it's index based, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. If it's I based, as in the iterations, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So once it gets to 6, it's going to hop out of this pogo stick, okay? So now we're going to go and we want to increment this sucker. And then don't forget your curly braces. Braces are important. And now it says declare an initialized loop, add the value of each of the element of the my R array to total. So see how this is different? It's my R. Instead of being an R, we got to make sure that we call this particular array. So this is where it gets funky. Remember, it wants us to store it in a total. So if it wants us to store, we start off with that. And remember, this is just a clean way of saying this plus whatever is on the other side. But we're going to think this through before we start punching numbers, okay? Okay. So it says add the value of each element of the my array total. So now, we wouldn't want to just do I, because then that would just add 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It wouldn't actually add the array. It would just add the increment of the increment counter. So we don't want to do that. We want to add these elements together and store it in total. So, and the increment counter is going to take each one and then store it in there. So we want to do it like this. Because now, what are we doing? This is going to say, okay, hey, at index 0, which is 2, I want you to add that to total and then store it in total. At index 1, I want you to add that to the index at 0, which is 2, and then store it in total, which would be 2 plus 3 is 5. And then to continue down there, okay, at index 3, because remember, 0, 1, 2. At index 2, we're going to add that to these two previous ones and store it into total. So that's the way we want to do it, because that's what it is asking for us. R is not defined. Oh. So right here, I made it, I was looking at this one instead of that one. So my R, this has to stay the same. Always double check if you click on it and they all highlight to be the same. That's an easy way to say, hey, okay, it's all the same. And then you check on that sucker and look, boom, 100%. And if you want, you can totally look at this example right here. And this is kind of like showing what it looks like. So the first one was 0 plus 2 because originally there was nothing in total. It was 2. 2 plus 3, 5. 5 plus 4, 9. So that is the process all the way down, and then it gives us our total, 20. And it outputs that sucker. Alright, if y'all enjoyed this, definitely give it a like, subscribe, hang out, have a good time. We are here. We have a tiny cohort where we have a community of learners. If that's something you're interested in, definitely check out the link below and sign up. Otherwise, have a wonderful rest of the night. Enjoy yourselves. You deserve it. Adios.